What is going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. You just saw my worst films of 2019 video. Now it is time to do the best films of 2019. I should be a lot happier doing this video. A lot of worst films from 2019 I don't really remember. I've tried putting them off in my brain. But the best films of the year I have definitely remembered. Now I'm also going to have honorable mentions. I have quite a few, so let me start off with my honorable mentions for the year 2019. My honorable mentions are as follows: Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, Shazam, Peanut Butter Falcon, Us, Rocketman, Knives Out, Marriage Story, Doctor Sleep, How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World, Long Shot, and 1917. Those are all of my honorable mentions for the year 2019. This was a great year in film. And by the way, I also have seen 96 movies in 2019, so I haven't seen all of them. So certain films like Parasite, that's not going to be on my list because I haven't been able to watch the movie yet. But I do have a good enough list where I feel very confident with this top 10. It might be updated, so if it's ever updated, just follow me down below on Letterboxd. The link is in the description where I do all my rankings for 2019, and I'm also starting my ranking for 2020, even though I've seen only 2 movies. But anyway, enough jibber jabbing. Let's get into my top 10 best films of 2019. Number 10, Uncut Gems. Adam Sandler has never been better. I have been a huge fan of Adam Sandler since I was a kid, but man, has he missed a lot with his comedies in the past like 5-6 years. But he's back with Uncut Gems. This is a movie that is neck-breaking pace. This movie never lets up. You feel so tense throughout the entire film, and you continue to see how this one guy continues to make mistake after mistake, and you wonder to yourself, is he ever going to get out of these really idiotic decisions that he's making? And the truth is, he doesn't ever. He continues to make these mistakes. And because you are so fascinated with this character, his addiction to gambling, the fact that you are moving through this film at a very fast rate, your heart is always continually pumping hard throughout the entire film. You continue to stay engaged throughout the entire movie, and it has a very satisfying conclusion that only makes so much sense in the world that the movie had to end that particular way. Number 9, The Farewell. This movie was such a surprise to me. I really love the heartfelt message within this film. I think Lulu Wang definitely should get some type of credit for what she's able to establish with this film. Taking an actress like Awkwafina, who I have never liked, ever, and really giving her something to chew on, showing her real acting ability was incredible. I think she is so good in this movie, and if she gets nominated for an Oscar, well deserved, because she is absolutely amazing in this film. Zhao Shuzhen, I wish she was my grandma in this movie. The way that this movie cultivates family, the way it tells its story in a very simplistic manner, but you feel the emotion, you feel the heart behind every single breath that the characters take within the movie. And it really just adds to the experience of how great this film is. And even though that the customs in China are a lot different than they are in the United States, you can understand what the family is going through. You've had loved ones that have been sick, or have had loved ones who have passed away that have been so detrimental to your life. You can really feel the impact that these characters have, because it feels very real and very personal. And it was a personal story told by the director Lulu Wang, which I really appreciated quite a bit. Number 8, Avengers Endgame. This was the culmination of 22 films in the making, and this movie gives you everything that you have wanted. There's so much great moments of fan service that feel natural, that truly tell a compelling story to why these fan servicey things actually happen, as opposed to Star Wars, where they kind of just hand-fisted a bunch of fan service that doesn't necessarily work at all, or isn't explained nearly to any type of degree. And the way that this movie is able to follow up Avengers Infinity War is absolutely incredible, because I do think Infinity War is still a better film, but Endgame gives us that great conclusion that we want with all of these characters. It's going to be a film experience that I'll never forget. Cheering in the theater as if it's like a sporting event. It stayed in my top 10 throughout the entire year, so that definitely tells you something about Avengers Endgame and my thoughts towards Avengers Endgame. Number 7, Toy Story 4. Now, I know a lot of people were disappointed by this film, but I thought this movie really lived up to par with the entire franchise, telling the story from kind of almost Woody's point of view, seeing the way Woody is growing up along with us, the audience, that was really, really nice because Toy Story understands that its fans aren't just little kids, but it's generational at this point. And so they try to tell compelling stories where not just little kids can understand, but teenagers, adults, and even the elderly can understand exactly what these characters are going through within this film. And I also felt like this is a very humor filled movie. There is so much comedy that works. Duke Kaboom, anything with Keanu Reeves is going to completely catapult it a couple of points for me. And I thought that what they were able to do with bringing the humor in a very realistic and very adult like way made this movie a lot more compelling, and it's still very emotional at the end. Maybe not as emotional as Toy Story 3, but I'm really happy that this was the definitive bookend to the Toy Story franchise. And they could always do Toy Story 5, but I really feel like after this one, I think we're okay. Number 6, Ford v Ferrari. This movie's a fan thrill ride. I absolutely love this movie. This is a crowd-pleasing film with great reason. Not only do you have great performances by Christian Bale and Matt Damon, really Christian Bale steals the show for me, but you also have injected fuel within the fans based on the action sequences, based on the editing. I think this is one of the best edited films of the year, and I think that this movie should really get a lot of consideration in the Oscars, and I think it could definitely be a front runner in terms of editing. This movie feels fast-paced. It moves at the pace that it needs to, but it feels like this movie continually gives us that thrill that we're looking for, especially the racing sequences, because those are pretty long sequences and a long stretch of time throughout the movie is spent on those sequences, but you never feel bored. And I'm not a racing fan at all, but this movie makes you a racing fan. You get behind these characters and it becomes as if you are cheering for Christian Bale's character and Matt Damon's character to succeed. It gives us two guys who are trying to live basically the American dream and trying to make America a force to be reckoned with as they're going against other countries throughout the world and trying to prove that Ford Motors can be as good as Ferrari. So I just really enjoyed this movie. This is an American film. Number 5, Jojo Rabbit. I was so hilariously engaged and enthralled in this movie the entire time. You give us some great characters. You give us some not just amazing humor moments, but some really great and fantastic emotional beats where you just feel for these characters. You feel teary-eyed, and there are moments in this movie that make you laugh, that make you cry. This movie is a satire. I've heard some people say that this movie glorifies Nazis. Are you kidding me? This movie shows how dumb the Nazis were, and it really glorifies how important it is to be a friend, how important it is to build relationships with those around you as opposed to tearing them apart by some type of way of dominance. And I just really love this movie. Taika Waititi, the dude knows how to direct, and this movie feels small, but it's bigger than what it actually is, and it has a lot of heart. So I just absolutely love this movie, and it's a movie that I'll always remember, and it's definitely a film that you can go and see multiple times and get something new out of it. Number 4, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I was so in love with this movie when I first watched it. I still am. I still really, really love it. This is, to me, vintage Tarantino. This is Tarantino at his best. This is not his best film. You can see how much he truly loves the art of filmmaking throughout every single scene of this film, because it feels like a kid was given all the money in the world to make whatever he wanted and to record whatever he wanted. And that's exactly what Tarantino does. And the great thing is that this movie is also very funny. It has a lot of heart to it as well. It's really a buddy film about two guys who are friends working in the industry in different ways and trying not fade away within the noise and within the lights of Hollywood. And so I really like the message. I love Brad Pitt in this movie. I think the guy's a lock to win the Oscar. I think he's right now everyone's favorite to win. If he doesn't win, it will be a monumental shock to everyone. I love Leonardo DiCaprio. I've always been a big fan of his, so I just really had a fun time with it. This is a very great hangout film that gives us great actors that can catapult any type of film like this to a different degree, because if you cast anybody else, this movie would not nearly be as entertaining or even as interesting as it is. Number 3, The Irishman. Scorsese's back. Another mob film, and this one is fantastic. 3.5 hours long. That runtime is pretty scary, I'm not gonna lie, but this movie does not feel 3.5 hours long. This movie flies by. And not only that, but you get such a compelling story that is not only entertaining, but it also gives a lot of meaning behind certain elements of life. And I really enjoy the fact that Scorsese gives us a film like this because this movie is very different from Casino. It's very different from The Departed. This movie really tries to be on its own, whereas it's not just another Scorsese mob film. It's really its own thing. And Al Pacino, man, to me, he stole the show. Everyone's saying Pesci, which I love Pesci. Pesci's great in this movie, but Al Pacino was fantastic. The guy felt like Jimmy Hoffa. I mean, the presence that Jimmy Hoffa had in real life that everyone talks about, that is the presence that I felt from Al Pacino being on screen playing and portraying Jimmy Hoffa. And this is a movie that has its very core moments that you'll never forget. And that's the one thing that I absolutely love about this film, because even though you don't remember the entirety of it, there are those core moments that are so vital that you will never forget, that shake you to the core, where it will stay in your mind for a long period of time. And it's a movie that I definitely want to go and revisit again, because I just felt like watching it was just such a satisfactory thing to have as a film fan and film enthusiast, because movies don't just get made of this caliber all the time. I still think that this one's going to win Best Picture, but we'll see. Number 2, The Lighthouse. I did not do a review on it, but I'm going to talk about The Lighthouse. This movie shook me to my core. Now, Midsommar was a movie that came out earlier in the year, around like July, I think, June or July. I remember coming out of that movie feeling like the whole film is pretentious. The movie tries to do certain things that just don't have a lot of meaning, and there's a lot of symbolism. This movie is a lot like Midsommar, but the better version of Midsommar, whereas this film is not pretentious. Robert Eggers does such a great thing in making this film at the aspect ratio he does, because this movie the entire time feels so tight. It feels so claustrophobic, and you feel that. Feels like you kind of have to like shrivel up in a bit when you're watching this movie, because there's so many scenes of relevance to symbolism, whether it be in Greek mythology, whether it be in kind of ancient history. They do certain things that play so well with the horror genre, the psychological drama, whereas like Midsommar was frustrating because it didn't. It felt like that movie was just trying to aimlessly wander and kind of was just trying to pick up things and trying to be like, hey, do you understand? Nah, you don't. See, I'm smart. I'm Ari Aster. I'm really smart. You don't understand my mind. This movie, Robert Eggers, is like, look, there are a lot of ways you can interpret these things, but I'm not going to be like, oh, you can't read it? Well, that sucks to be you. I'm super smart. It felt like Robert Eggers made the movie that he wanted, and this movie is symbolic in a way that is horrifying and scary. There are moments in this movie that are still in my brain. I just watched this yesterday, and I cannot stop thinking about this film. It continually left me on the edge of my seat. You have two amazing actors acting their hardest. Robert Pattinson, Willem Dafoe, they're fantastic. If you have any worries about Robert Pattinson being Batman, don't. Watch this movie. You'll see just how amazing Robert Pattinson is. And this is a film that is necessary. It's artsy because it's black and white. The aspect ratio is not very common, especially in this day and age. But I'll tell you what, this movie does everything right that it needs to. It nails it out of the park for me. And this is a movie that will keep you thinking throughout the entire film. Whereas Midsommar makes you think, but you're frustrated when you're thinking about it. This movie, it makes you theorize, and it blew my freaking mind. I could not believe the heights that this movie achieved and where it went, because, it does some amazing things. And my number 1 movie of 2019, this should be no surprise, guys. I've been talking about it a lot this year, Joker. This movie exceeded all of my expectations. It did everything that I had hoped it would do and more. This is a movie that is not necessarily a comic book film. You take the fact that an iconic character like the Joker's in this, you take away the Wayne name out of this film, this movie is truly a psychological horror film. They do so many things right in this movie, showing what could truly happen if society created a person like this. And I loved it. Joaquin Phoenix gave the best performance of the year of 2019, hands down. Give him the Oscar. I think Christian Bale was great. I think Robert De Niro was good. I thought Adam Driver in Marriage Story was fantastic. And I do think Adam Driver is the only other person I could see winning the Best Actor award at the Oscars. But I'm sorry, this is Joaquin Phoenix's year. This movie defined what it is to be an actor, and it's unbelievable. This movie shatters you as a person. It makes you think, and it makes you depressed afterwards. It makes you feel horrible and disgusting afterwards, which not a lot of movies can do that. So I really appreciate that. Anyway, guys, that is my list for the best films of 2019. Let me know your guys' list down below in the comment section of the video. Make sure you guys drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel for more content just like this. And here's to 2020, guys. Here's a 2020. This year doesn't look as promising as 2019, but let's hope that we get some really good films. As always, I'll see you guys in my next video. Goodbye.